After the bottom of the hour, we're going to have the chief muckety-muck of Convention of States on the program, Mark Meckler. There's things happening in 2 states that I want to bring to your attention, to the attention of the people in these states. This, to me, is fundamentally the most substantive way to get our country back. And step by step, we're getting there. I think there's 19 state legislatures that have approved it already. So I got a note from Mark Meckler, the head muckety-muck at Convention of States, which is kicking hard. It's a vibrant, active organization. The goal is to save the country and to reinstitute our constitutional republic. Mark, welcome back. You have some updates for us.
I do. First of all, Mark, thanks for the promotion to head muckety-muck. I'm honored.
I could have called you Baby Doc, but I thought muckety-muck was better.
Yeah, there's a lot going on out there, Mark, right now. I'm actually in Wyoming as we speak, and we have a committee hearing first thing tomorrow morning. You said it, right? You said there's 19 states that have passed. Actually, 19 and a half if you count the Wyoming Senate that we've already passed. So tomorrow morning we'll be in the House Revenue Committee. That hearing starts at 7:30 a.m., and really, on Wyoming, I have a specific question for you, if you don't mind. I know you wrote the book on this, the Liberty Amendments, that got a lot of people started on this. I hear from a lot of legislators the idea that they're worried, and they're hearing this, by the way, from John Birch's society, who's working side by side with Common Cause and the League of Women Voters promoting abortion. All these groups talk about the Runaway Convention. And I know you wrote a little bit about that. Would you mind addressing that for some of these legislators?
Yes, a runaway convention is an impossibility because a convention of states, you have 34 states that are represented. States used to meet all the time, get together, make some decisions. But in order to amend the Constitution, you need 38 states to ratify. So whatever comes out of this convention of states still has to be ratified by 38 states, either by the legislatures or by convention. So how could you possibly have a runaway convention? The runaway convention is the Supreme Court. The runaway convention is the president with a pen and a phone signing executive orders. A runaway convention is a Congress that violates the Budget Act, that violates debt ceilings. We have a runaway convention that meets every single day in Washington, D.C. So the Article 5 amendment of the Constitution process via the state legislatures can never be a runaway convention. In fact, the difficulty is going to be not just getting the 34 states that call for a convention of states, but to then get ratified what comes out of that convention by the 38 states. So I never understood this runaway convention argument. It's an absolute impossibility. And I find it interesting that the radical left-wing groups, of course they don't support convention of states. Their arguments are absolute lies. They don't believe in the Constitution in any respect. The John Birch Society is a radical organization that you can fit in an old-time telephone booth. And the idea that they have any influence over this process is laughable. But anybody who actually understands it, reads the Constitution, understands the history, understands what it takes to amend the Constitution, is very difficult. And Convention of States is even more difficult. But we know we will not get what is needed out of Congress because Congress in Washington has created the problem in the first place. Have I explained it fairly clearly?
That's perfect, Mark. And I know there's going to be committee members listening tonight, so I really appreciate that. In Iowa right now, I actually just came from Iowa before I came to Wyoming. We passed the Senate subcommittee there today, 2-1. House subcommittee hearing is tomorrow, 7:30. So for folks who are in Wyoming or Iowa, man, now's the time in Wyoming. Call your House members. Let them know you want them to pass it. In Iowa, again, Senate and the House calls. Here's another one, Mark. So much happening once in New Hampshire. And this is the first time this happened. We passed the House committee 13-5 last week. Actually in a bipartisan vote, really good. A House floor vote probably tomorrow. And it's an interesting legislature. A lot of people don't realize it's 400 in their House of Representatives, so it is a huge state legislature. So we're going to have a floor vote there tomorrow probably. Kansas passed their House committee 13-10 this week, so next steps onto the House floor. That's within the next few weeks. North Carolina, you might remember we passed that in the House, but not the Senate last year. This year we expect the bill to be introduced any day by Representative Dennis Riddell, our great champion in the House. House leadership intends to pass it again. We think we look better in the Senate this time. We just had a nervous leadership there. Idaho, we have the support of leadership in both houses. There is a lot going on all over the country.
Which is fantastic. And I tell people, you not only have millions of members, you have hundreds and hundreds of true activists who volunteer enormous amounts of time, a fantastic staff. You truly do. I don't give a lot of speeches in the course of the year, but when Mark Meckler calls, we try and figure out how to do it because this is something I really believe in. And I just want the legislators in Wyoming and Iowa and elsewhere to understand it's impossible to have a runaway convention. This is the first step towards the ratification of an amendment by 38 state legislatures or conventions. So if you want to look at it simply, it's really the state legislatures acting in lieu of Congress. You could look at it that way if you want. But the fact of the matter is, the reason this has come up at all, the reason there's a groundswell for this, the reason why there's tens of millions of listeners here and Americans who support this, because we're following the constitutional system. There's not a runaway anything. It is the constitutional system. If you claim you're a constitutionalist and then you start cherry-picking the parts that you don't like, then you're not a constitutionalist. You're a leftist. And as far as the state legislators go, they have a responsibility. They have a duty under the federal Constitution, under Article 5, to help save this country. And Article 5 gives them uniquely, solely, gives them the power to save this country. It was handed to the state legislatures by the delegates at the Constitutional Convention a couple of days before they left. They said in the end, we got to fix this. So you can amend the Constitution one way, which they don't do. They just get court orders and so forth. But in order to push back, the state representatives, the states, the funny thing is, Mark Meckler, I hear people, state reps, states, whine all the time. Oh, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency pushes us around Wyoming, right? The Interior Department and BLM, which is part of the Interior Department, the Agriculture Department. Look what they're doing here. Well, what do you want to do about it? Whine about it? Because let me tell you something. Chuck Schumer's from New York City. Pelosi's from San Francisco. Hakeem Jeffries is from New York City. These people don't know a damn thing about Wyoming. And they could care less about the Constitution. So if you want to fix it, if we can't get states like Wyoming and Iowa and New Hampshire, well, then we can't get anybody at this point. So it's very, very important that people understand that they put aside the John Birch Society, that they ignore Common Cause and the League for Women Vote. These are the latter two big government radical activists aligned with the Democrat Party. They are thrilled that we live in a post-constitutional America. And the John Birch Society, well, they're always angry about something. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, Mark, and I would add, we have in some of these states, obviously you remember Andy Biggs, we used to call him King Biggs when he was in the Arizona legislature, single guy stopping the legislature from passing this, behaving like a tyrant. We got the same thing going on in South Dakota right now. We've got a legislator who's in the leadership. Schoenbeck is his name. He's the new king, I would guess, King Schoenbeck. I think we have the votes in the South Dakota legislature. He killed us this year, wouldn't let it get out of committee. So you get tyrants, these little petty tyrants in some of these states. They claim to be constitutional conservatives. They're nothing of the sort. Look, anybody who won't take a stand against the federal government, they're not a conservative in any sense of the word.
That's the irony. That's one of the things that infuriated me about Biggs on all the speaker stuff, where he's positioning himself as the true conservative, and then you have uninformed people at Newsweek, uninformed people with the Texas Policy Organization, morons, in fact, who say, well, Biggs, you're under my... No, Biggs. Thank God he was sent to Washington. Then Arizona could actually pass the resolution. Then it's the only sure way that we can get our Constitution back. And he stopped it because he's too ignorant and has too much hubris. And who is this Sean Beck? What position does he hold in South Dakota?
I believe he's the Senate president there, and he sits on the main committee. Sits on the main committee that decides what goes out to the floor and actually gets voted on. So he literally just never lets us have a debate. We have an incredible grassroots army in South Dakota. As you can imagine, getting to the Capitol in South Dakota is not easy. It's a very small town. A lot of people, very few people live there. And we have activists come from all over the states, show up at 7 in the morning, and basically just treats them with disdain and disrespect. And again, he operates like a tyrant, and we're going to continue to put pressure on him. We're never going to stop coming back. We're going to pass it there eventually. I don't care if we have to wait until he's out of office, if we have to chase him out of office, but we're going to pass it there. He needs to be primary. Yep, and we will for sure. Our activists are involved in elections all over the country, Mark. This is something that's new in the last few years. We participated in over 450 elections around the country, and we're going to continue to go after the people who stand against Convention of States. A vote for Convention of States is a vote to say that the states should control how much power Congress has. The idea that states wouldn't want to do that, to me, is outrageous. Folks that don't want to do that should go home. They shouldn't be in state government.
Sean Beck is the president, we were just told, of the Senate in South Dakota, the Republican Senate, and one man is blocking the whole thing, the way Andy Biggs did in Arizona. And you get these guys, and they use the same lies, because they'd rather sit there and whine about the federal government and its imposition of its regulations and its rules on the farmers and the ranchers, and the people in rural states like in South Dakota, than actually do something about it. So if you're unhappy with federal environmental rules, with the Department of Interior and BLM, with the Department of Agriculture and Department of Energy killing your farms and your ranches and the value of your private property, you can blame Sean Beck. Sean Beck. Sean Beck, whoever the hell that is, the president of the Senate in South Dakota. You should politely and civilly, I said politely and civilly, contact his office and tell me either to help or get the hell out of the way. But it's not a one-man dictatorship in the South Dakota legislature. All right, my friend, if people want to learn more about Convention of States, where do they go?
They go to conventionofstates.com. The first thing you do is sign the petition, and then really importantly, click on the Take Action tab. Mark, you got to see a lot of our activists when you were with us down in Florida.
Wonderful
We are serious people, seriously fighting to change the country. So if folks go to conventionofstates.com, they can join us.
Fantastic. And I hope you all do. And thank you very much, Mark Meckler, and fill us in on what happens.
Thanks, Mark. God bless you.
God bless you, too. That guy's great. His wife is great. The whole group is great.